to the Backyard Machine Shop. We have another video on the Pratt Whitney lathe, and this is going to be video number 9, I think. And in this video, we're going to take and put the headstock back on the lathe. So we got to reassemble the headstock. Originally, I wasn't going to take the headstock off, but due to some other things, I ended up having to, and I'm glad I did. But everything's in good shape. We're going to talk about it a little bit and show you a couple of things. And hopefully by the end of this video, we'll have the spindle back in the lathe also. So, stay tuned. Let me get set up. Be right back. Guys, I got you over here at the headstock. And the headstock basically is a casting for the spindle. And it's got a reversing gear in it. And we're going to put the reversing gear back in now. Here's the reversing gear. And basically the way it works is there's a pinion gear that mates to the headstock. And then this turns this compound bevel gear here, and you have a sliding clutch, a little dog clutch, and that dog clutch, when you shift it in one direction, it engages in that bevel gear. When you shift it in the other direction, it engages in that bevel gear. And then you have this bevel gear here. This is the shifting arrangement. And you have two forks. Pick that up. And you have this bevel gear. And this bevel gear is what you're shifting between. So, pretty simple design. You'll see how it works as it goes. Alright, so first thing we need to do is we need to get some oil. And let's oil these bearings. And these are just simple cast iron bearings. They're actually just machined into the headstock. So there's no we're going to I'm going to oil that. And we're going to place this shaft in. Let's see how we do this. Alright, so now since we have that in, we want to oil all the parts here. Shift linkage and the shifter. Upper part of the bearing. Alright, so now we got good oil coverage. Like I said, as this thing works, that pinion will cover this one. And it shifts, and the pinion drives this one, and when you reverse it, you just shift your dog clutch over to the other side, and then it reverses. I'll show you more about that when we get it in. Alright, so we have this little guy here, and I got to get them in. Get back. Alright guys, to help us hold these shift tongs in, or whatever you want to call them, forks, you're going to take a little bit of white grease and just kind of put them on there. It ain't going to hurt anything to have it in there. Alright, so this is indexed in with a hole, with a pin right here, so it has to go in this direction. Line these little forks up. Alright, there you go, slides right. Alright, so now pretty easy. You got something right. There we go. Now everything is turning. So we'll oil this bearing up. Little shaft here. Alright, so we got 4 screws. guys. So now what we're going to do is we're going to roll this on its side. And this little gear here drives off of the spindle, and that's what rotates your shaft. And I'll turn it around and let you see that. Let me put it together. I know it goes on this way. I don't want to put it on the other way. Alright guys, so here's the spin. This little pinion drives this gear, and as you Alright, so let's get the hands clean. The spindle drives this little pinion gear, which in turn drives this compound bevel gear, which rotates the shaft here. And when you shift the other direction, this shaft will change rotation. Here it goes. A lot of backlash in the gears. Anyway, that's how that works. Alright, so everything installed in the headstock. I've come in and I've stoned all the surfaces, cleaned them up, make sure there's no burrs or anything. I've done the same thing to the lathe, and now we're going to take and install it on the lathe. Alright guys, we got I got you over here. I had something in wrong, so I had to change it. Anyway, what we have to do now is we've got these linkage rods, and we're going to set this headstock on, and we're going to have to get in here and connect this linkage. I was thinking it went above, but it's actually down below. It took me a few minutes to get everything switched around, and we're back on it. So again, we're going to lubricate the ways. I've already done that, and I'm going to pick the headstock up and put it on here. Alright guys, we got the headstock lifted up above the table. Now if you can see the shifter mechanism underneath the headstock. And this has to go down and clamp to the shifter. Now I had the shifter in wrong originally and had to take it apart and reroute it. And so now it's going to be a little easier. Now I've oiled the ways, stoned the ways, cleaned them all up, and starting to put the headstock in place. Just letting it down easy. I don't want to slam it down. Make sure everything's lining up. Could probably use a third hand here, but I got it. It's good. It's seated where it's supposed to be. Alright, now we're going to install the studs. Originally I thought I could get to everything with the headstock off, but I'm going to have to actually crawl underneath the lathe and fasten all the linkages like I disconnected them. And there's not much room there. There's a 3 or 4 inch window just big enough to get my arm into. Letting the pressure. That's pretty much on. Alright, now to hook up the linkages. Alright guys, so what we're doing now is we're going to put the spindle in, and I wanted to show you a couple of things about it. Now, all the thrust surfaces on this particular lathe is here at the end of this end of the spindle. There's a thrust washer or a thrust machine surface in here, and the bearing here is the thrust surface. And then there's another thrust washer that goes on behind it, along with the adjusting nut. So, the first thing we want to do is, you know, these bearings are in pretty good shape. We want to keep them that way. We're just going to oil them really good, oil our shaft, oil our surfaces here. It's going to make a mess, but that's alright, I'll clean it up. Oil this bearing really good. Spread it out. Oil the shaft. You never can have too much oil. Well, I guess you could, but not doing something like this. Alright? So you're going to just ease it into place. Alright, push it a little on the forward side as we come down. Alright, before we go too far. Alright, sometimes you need 2 hands or 4 hands. Okay. Put this out the way. back here. There it is. Yeah, so we've got it in. Now we need to, thing looks good. Now we need to put the caps on. And you're going to do the same thing with the caps. You're going to oil them really good. And we have some, they marked it where it come apart. Goes back on this way. And this is enough hammer to see them. Things have to go. Takes the right hammer. For the front cap, same thing, lots of oil. Line up a little. Dress surface. Okay. All right, so here's your thrust washer for the rear of your rear of the lathe, or the oil. Then you have a spanner nut. There's a little pin in here that thrust washer goes into. Keeps it from turning. Alright. Now I'm going to adjust it later. I'll lock it down right there for a second. Alright, so all your thrust is in this area right here. Okay. All right, we got one more little thing we need to do. Got a little set screw right here, oil down in there. All right, up next we're going to put the oilers back on. Now these are brass oilers, they got a wick in them. And the wicks are bad. I'm going to have to replace the wicks. But we're going to go ahead and reinstall them. Keep trash out of them. Alright, so that, and then our shifter should be neutral. Shaft shouldn't be turning. It's not. That should be. Turns that way. Then you shift it back. Pulls it back the other way. Alright, looks good. Alright guys, I guess that's the wrap. Starting to look like a lathe again. Got a few, well, with the total project getting it running, we're probably about halfway. We still have to build a drive system somehow, or either a line shaft or something to power it. But I'd say we're 3/4 of the way done with the actual lathe itself. So, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. The rest of it's kind of just dress up. You got the gear train. We're going to have to make a shaft for the relieving attachment, but that'll become a lot later. Putting the gear train in, the guards, the back gear's got to go back in, and the shafting. So the lead screw and the feed screw, the feed shaft, and the reversing shaft has to go back in. So with that said, I think that'll do it. Thank you for watching, and from the Backyard Machine Shop, so long.